The lie that let me heal. The months I spent on the floor of my mother's living room eventually faded, not erased, but buried beneath the noise of life. I didn't crash again, no more midnight panic attacks, no more thinking I was going to die in the snow. Instead, I built a new version of the story, and with time I started to believe it myself. The panic attack on a ski trip? I told people it was a skiing accident, that I'd fallen, that I'd twisted my neck, which was all true by the way, but the thing is, everybody falls on skis. They are really stupid things if you think about it. Two long sticks tied to your rigid boots that glide exceptionally well, and on those you throw yourself off a huge snow-covered mountain. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Anyway, I told anyone who cared to listen that the pain and dizziness I experienced after my ordeal was caused by a nerve issue, a physical injury, a whiplash, all from a skiing accident. I said it enough times with enough conviction that even I started to believe it. It was easier that way. Easier than saying I'd crumbled under the weight of anxiety and years of unprocessed trauma. Easier than telling the truth, that something inside me had snapped, that I'd lost control over my own body and mind in a way that left me terrified and humiliated. This version, this physical version, was more acceptable. People get neck injuries, people understand pain. What people don't understand is the slow, silent collapse of the nervous system. The kind that leaves you trembling, gasping, but still looking perfectly fine on the outside. And to be honest, there was a kernel of truth in it. My neck did feel strange afterwards. Tight, sensitive. Sometimes it ached. And sometimes the ache scared me enough to think maybe I had been right all along. That something was physically wrong and everyone else had missed it. But so what? Everyone gets a stiff neck. I was working full shift, lifting heavy crates, working bar nights that ended at 4 in the morning. I was still partying. If I could do that, how bad could it really be? That became my logic. That became my cover. I told the story of the skiing accident, of the miraculous recovery, of the young man who'd bounced back from something serious and kept going. And people listened, nodded, moved on. So did I. I spent the next 6, maybe 7 years pushing forward. I worked through the restaurant industry with the same stubbornness that had once kept me from screaming during fights at home. First pubs, then nicer places. Eventually, I worked my way up to managing one of the most infamous nightclubs in town. It was a job that looked like success on the surface, but in reality, it was a ticking time bomb. The nightclub had a bad reputation, not just for wild parties and loud music, but for its clientele. Gangsters, mostly. People who didn't need last names. Guys with fancy watches and temper problems. People who made you feel like one wrong word could ruin your night or your life. I was there 6 months, long enough to know I didn't want to stay. Fights broke out almost every weekend. Security never seemed quite enough. You'd see someone smiling and drinking 1 second, and the next a chair would be flying or someone would be dragging a bleeding friend out the back door. The owners weren't much better. They dressed like businessmen, but their tempers were short, and their business was anything but clean. There was always something simmering beneath the surface, some unspoken tension that made my skin crawl. I got the sense that eventually, if you stayed long enough, that trouble would land on your lap, and I didn't want to be there when it did. So I quit. I tried to take the professional route, got a job at a computer service company selling IT solutions during the day, pretending I belonged in a collared shirt instead of behind a bar. It wasn't glamorous. but it was quiet and I liked that. But then one night I was out with some friends blowing off some steam like we used to. The conversation turned to the nightclub. I mentioned casually that I'd never been paid my last check. It wasn't a threat, just frustration. A passing comment between beers. A few days later my phone rang. It was one of the owners. He wasn't calling to apologize. He'd heard I was talking, heard I was upset, heard I was saying things I hadn't said. I still remember how my stomach dropped, how my hands started to shake before he'd even said a full sentence. He talked slow and soft, like someone who didn't need to raise his voice to be threatening. He wanted a meeting, just to clear the air. I didn't have a choice. The meeting was at a shuttered restaurant, one of their other spots, past midnight. Inside, dim lighting, quiet music, and the kind of fake smiles that make you wish you'd stayed at home. I walked in alone, knowing full well I was being summoned. I was there to explain myself, to apologize for something I hadn't even done. Apparently, someone I'd considered a friend had taken what I had said and twisted it. Told them I was angry, told them I was claiming they owed me 10 times what they did. Told them I was planning something. None of it was true. But truth didn't matter. In situations like that, it never does. I played along, smiled, apologized, explained, denied, swore up and down I wasn't causing trouble, that I just wanted to move on. And eventually, they let me go. No harm done, technically. I drove home that night, sweat sticking to my back and fear pounding in my chest. I hadn't felt fear like that since the panic. But this time, it wasn't just my body betraying me. It was people, friends, co-workers. A world I thought I understood, turning against me without warning. I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep walking the line between chaos and control, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I needed to get out. And in that moment, driving through the dark, cold Swedish streets, my mind went somewhere warm. Spain. The coast. My father. The brief year of peace I had as a teenager. A place where no one knew me, where no one had twisted loyalties or whispered threats. A place where I could breathe again. So I left. I quit the job, sold what I could, and planned a one-way trip back to Spain. Not chasing a dream this time, but escaping a nightmare. I didn't know what I'd find there, but I knew what I was leaving behind. And sometimes that's enough reason to go. Hi, if this story meant something to you, if it helped pass the time or just made you feel a little less alone, consider subscribing. It helps more than you think. You're also welcome to share it or take a look at one of the books I've written. They carry many of the same themes: life, struggle, the search for meaning. I'll keep posting as long as I can. And yes, some episodes might be rough around the edges, the sound, the pacing, even the voice, but that's the point. I'm not aiming for perfection, just honesty. Life's not polished, neither is this. Take care of yourselves, and if you're doing fine, look around. Someone near you might need a little care. Thanks for listening and for being here.